You are now watching Surveillance. Donate or subscribe for more sick twists.
What's going on, guys? So here's my Phase 2 video. I've been rushing to get this out. I've been really busy IRL, so hopefully gonna get this out before Ulduar release later tonight. The sheet is also complete. You can find the link for that in the description. This video is just going to be going over the sheet. I'm going to let the sheet speak for itself mostly. There's still a few sections that are under construction, but nothing super important. Thanks to Terran, Sulis, Frostbitten, Thad, especially Thad, who did a lot of the early sim work, and Swedge for all their help on the sheet. So this has been a really a massive collaborative project. Hopefully we'll get the TOGC Phase 3 sheet out a little bit earlier, but it took us a while because we kind of all got swamped with things in real life right when we were going to start working on this. So it was really hard for us to get this out and finish all the data. So I'm going to go over every section except for the Ulduar boss guide, which we're going to save for a later video later this week with Terran. So you guys can stay tuned for that. Let's get started. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to is Thad's sheet, which basically goes over all the different tier combinations that you can use for single target, cleave, no-Hardmodes, and 10-man. This is where you're going to be able to find your BiS. Now we don't have 80 upgrades links integrated into this yet, but don't worry, I'm going to do that over the next week. Right now it links to the sim, but I'm going to add 80 upgrades links pretty soon. So this section is basically just a general overview. It just talks about how rough Phase 2 is going to be for us. We lose our undead bonus, but it also talks about how our defensive utility is a lot more important for the hard modes, especially like ADDON. So we are going to be more needed in that regard, but we are going to be doing a lot less damage. So mages also may be going fire for some fights, which may mean that we will be needed for a 3% damage buff. Now, you can go Aura Mastery or Divine Sacrifice for a lot of these raid nukes. Like Hodir, you can go Frost, I believe, Frost Aura with Aura Mastery. But for some fights, you're going to need to be Divine Guardian specifically. Now, I recommend most people just go Divine Guardian because it works for every single different raid damage mechanic cooldown. Aura Mastery only works for a specific few. Like ADDON, I think you can use Shadow Aura with Aura Mastery, and it'll be pretty similar according to the math that Swedge did. A little bit weaker, but also you will be able to do a little bit more damage, so it's a trade-off. Improved Lay on Hands can also be a pretty solid cooldown for a tank, and your sub-holy spec can also give your heals some nice boosts. If you can go dual spec and get both, that's what I would probably do, but if you have to have a prod or holy off spec, then I would probably just go Divine Guardian. So for anybody who's confused about what the specs are, you can find this in the deep dive in Light Club Discord, but here's just another place where you can find it. This is an example of each of the specs. You can tweak each of these specs to a certain degree. There's a little bit of flexibility, but this is pretty much, for the most part, what they're going to look like. So our best helm is going to be War Helm of the Champion. It's just by far our best. It's from Thorim 25-man hard mode. There's some other good helms here too, though. A lot of other people who don't get War Helm of the Champion will probably just end up running Tier Helm or Mimiron's Flight Goggles, both two great helms that come pretty close. Boundless Gaze is also decent, so if you can get one of those, that might be an alright choice. For neck, we have Frigid Strength of Hodir as our best, tied with Pendulum of Infinity. Now, the Frigid Strength neck is from Hodir, obviously. Pendulum of Infinity is from DSAC. Both are 252 item level necks, and they're going to be pretty interchangeable. Just remember that the Frigid Strength neck has hit and the Pendulum does not. There's also a lot of other decent necks here, particularly Strength of the Heavens, which I think a lot of people are going to end up with. For shoulders, we have Shoulder Pads of the Intruder and Tiered Shoulders. That's pretty much the two options that most people are going to want to go with. Shoulder Pads of the Intruder are kind of like Shoulder Pads of the Stranger from Serpent Shrine Cavern, if you guys can remember those. They have hit and expertise, so they're pretty solid. Now these are 252 item level leather shoulders, so they're going to be highly contested. And they drop from Iron Council hard mode 25-man. Alright, cape, we have Icy Intent, Skyborn, Faceless General. 3 different capes that are all pretty freaking good. Skyborn is going to come from the same quest as Brand's Signet Ring, which is really tough, and Brand's is best in slot, so you're probably going to pick Brand's. You're probably not going to pick Skyborn, even though Skyborn looks really good. That's from the turn-in quest. So, now Faceless General is also good, and you're going to want to kind of alternate between Icy Intent and Faceless General depending on what you need for hit. Now, this is one of your primary hit swaps. I didn't actually mention it before, but Neck and Cloak are your 2 primary best hit swaps that you can make. Icy Intent is from 25 Heroic Hodir, I believe, and Faceless General is from 10-man Vezak's hard mode. So for chest, we have Embrace of the Gladiator. This is from 25-man Thorim hard mode. And you're either going to go with this or you're going to go with tier chest, most likely. Embrace of the Gladiator is highly contested. It's leather, I believe. Yeah, it's leather. So it's going to be really contested and really hard to get. Most of you guys are probably going to end up playing with tier, which is fine. And if you haven't gotten tier yet, you can take a look at the Valorous tier or Steelbreaker's Embrace. So for bracers, we have the Armbands of Bedlam, which is from Mimiron, 25-man Heroic, so Firefighter. And the Solar Bindings are the 252 item level male bracers from Algalon and 25-man. So these are both good. Bedlam might be a little bit easier to get because they're only contested by plate wearers. And if you really have to, you can use Decimators or Fluxing Energy Coils. Just as you can see with Helm and Shoulders and Chest, it's the 252 item level off-piece versus the tier. Now, Gloves of the Endless Dark are decent as well. Endless Dark is from 10-man Ulduar or Algalon, and Steady Hand is from 25-man hard mode XT. For belts, we have a couple different good options: Soul Devouring, Belt of Colossal Rage, Starfall Girdle. And then below that, we have a number of decent crafted belts, which you guys can go ahead and craft if you want a quick upgrade going into Ulduar. There's also Belt of the Singing Blade, which is from Emblems of Conquest, but I recommend not getting that early, waiting until you get your tier and stuff like that first. Now, Soul Devouring is from Yogg-Saron, 10-man hard mode, and Colossal Rage is from 25-man Council. And then lastly, Starfall Girdle is from Algalon 10-man. Now, once again, similar to a lot of other slots, it comes down to, can you use the hit, can you use the expertise, that kind of thing. So that's really just what it is. Colossal Rage looks like the best option, but you oftentimes find the inability to use the hit rating. For legs, we have actually a lot of decent options. Plated Leggings of Ruination is the 252 off-piece that's going to be our best in slot. Tier legs are pretty solid. Fused Alloy Leggings are solid. Cunning Deception are solid. Violet Champion, a little bit less solid, but still decent. A lot of good options here. And remember, if that set bonus comes into play, that's going to add 80 to 100 DPS, whether it's 2-piece or 4-piece. Now, in terms of all the different off-pieces, this is our biggest one. It's the biggest upgrade compared to tier. So that's something to take into account, but it's also a little bit less contested than something like Embrace. If you wanted to run 4-piece tier and 1 off-piece, this would probably be the best off-piece for that. And these legs are from the 25-man hard mode of Flame Leviathan. Boots is another place where you have the option of going with a crafted option early on. Footpads of Silence are pretty strong for a crafted item, and they're going to be right up there with some of the other best items in the phase. So if you want to get those crafted, I'd probably craft those before the belt. Especially because our Phase 1 BiS, Melancholy Sabatons, just didn't really have the greatest stats for us. Lifeless Knight is from 25-man Algalon, and Tempered Mercury is from 10-man Mimiron hard mode. Alright, a lot of good rings here. Seal of the Betrayed King, Brand's Signet Ring are the 2 best, but it's not always going to be possible to use both of those together. Now remember, you cannot get both Brand's Signet Ring and Drape of the Skyborn. Brand's Signet Ring is from that same turn-in as Drape of the Skyborn, the reply code alpha, and Seal of the Betrayed King is actually from Yogg-Saron 25-man hard mode. Now, there's some other really good rings down here in the A tier, like Blade Bearer's Signet and Sif's Promise. Definitely don't sleep on those. Loop of the Agile, Brand Sealing Ring. A lot of really good A tier rings. And rings is also another really good slot to do like a hit swap. So as you guys know, for Trinkets, Dark Moon Card Greatness is still just the best one. Blood of the Old God actually gets pretty close if you can use 100% of the hit, and by extension, Pyrite Infuser, which is almost the same exact trinket as Blood of the Old God, is about the same. But it's really, really hard to make all of that hit rating work. It's actually really, really difficult. So most of the time, you're actually not able to use all of that hit, especially if you want to use a lot of the best gear, which has hit on it. Comet's Trail is also very solid. Everybody else wants this trinket. It's going to be BiS on single target, and it's going to be very solid on Cleave, but a little bit worse than Wrathstone. And that's because Haste is still a really good stat on Cleave. So for BiS, you would want to get Dark Moon Card Greatness and Comet's Trail. That's going to be your absolute BiS. Closely behind that will be Dark Moon Card Greatness and Dark Matter. And then a little bit behind that will be Dark Moon Card Greatness and Wrathstone. Now, Wrathstone is actually surprisingly good. As you guys know, active trinkets are really good on Cleave. So for Cleave, you're going to want Wrathstone because it's your best in slot trinket for Cleave specifically. Now, every one of these top 5 trinkets are good on Cleave and single target. Wrathstone is the best on Cleave, and Comet's Trail is the best on single target. But Comet's Trail also does good on Cleave, and Wrathstone also does good on single target. So because Comet's Trail is so good for other classes, you might want to consider letting somebody else have it instead of you. Also, I'm going to actively recommend against using Blood of the Old God or Pyrite Infuser, because you're going to end up losing DPS in the end trying to make that. Alright, so now we get to the juicy stuff with weapons. Pretty straightforward. Everybody really just wants to get Voldrithar, Darkblade of Oblivion. It's the best weapon. And it's 3.6 speed, which is the slowest speed of any of the weapons you'll see, which makes it really good on Cleave as well. Dark Edge of Depravity is going to be the next best weapon for most people. Hammer of Crushing Whispers and Azir's Edge just kind of occupy that tier a little bit lower. And then we have all the B tier items, which are just mostly lower eye level weapons. Now these are in order of highest DPS in the tier itself. As you can see, Earthshaper is the best of all the B tier weapons. And I want you guys to pay attention to the note at the bottom that says that take your racial expertise bonuses into account. If you have a racial expertise bonus on a certain weapon, move that weapon up 1 sub-tier. For example, if you're a human, move Azir's Edge up from A to A+, because it's a sword and you get that extra expertise bonus for swords. If you were a human, that would bump Azir's Edge up to make it about equal or slightly better than Hammer of Crushing Whispers. If you were a dwarf, that would bump Hammer of Crushing Whispers up to about the same as Dark Edge of Depravity. You get the picture. So, now Dark Edge of Depravity is the only 3.5 speed weapon listed here above the A tier. So that's going to come into play with the Cleave rankings. But something you guys also need to take into account is the hit and expertise on these weapons will make it a little bit difficult. Azir's Edge and Voldrithar do not have any hit or expertise, so transitioning between them is pretty easy. Also take into account that you can use hit or expertise gems in certain situations. For single target, you can use hit gems. For Cleave, you can use hit or expertise gems if you have to reach your cap. But you do want to make sure that you're able to use the stats on these weapons, because that's how they are ranked. For example, Hammer of Crushing Whispers is only better than Azir's Edge if you can actually use that hit. Here we have a DPS chart that was given to us by Frostbitten. So take that as you will. It's just a little bit of data to support the ranks that we have listed here. So here we have our Cleave weapon rankings. The only change that you're going to see here is that Dark Edge of Depravity, being 3.5 speed, has fallen down a bit. Now don't really pay attention to the B tier because those aren't even done yet. They are just copy pasted from the single target. So I don't actually know if Earthshaper is the best B tier weapon for Cleave. I haven't done those yet, but those will be updated over the next day or two. But the top 4 is accurate. Now, as you can see from the note, slower weapons tend to be stronger than faster weapons of the same item level, especially for cleaving, because Divine Storm is not normalized, If you want to know what that means, you can just Google World of Warcraft normalization and read the article of what that means. Dark Age of Depravity is the only weapon here above A tier that's listed that's not 3.6 speed, it's 3.5. Because of this, it falls down a tier, and all the other weapons are going to scale relatively better on Cleave. Now, once again, it's assumed that you can use all of the hit or expertise available on any of these weapons. And once again, you're going to want to bump up anything that you have a racial expertise bonus for up a sub tier. So if you were a dwarf and you had Hammer of Crushing Whispers, that would bump up to an A+, and that would actually be better than Dark Edge in that scenario. Voldrathar is from 25-man Vezex. Hammer of Crushing Whispers is from Yogg-Saron hard mode 10-man. Azir's Edge is from hard mode XT 10-man. And Dark Age of Depravity is from the Yogg-Saron hard mode 0 or 1 Watchers helping, and 25-man Ulduar. Libram is super straightforward. You want one of the PvP Librams. The Deadly Gladiators one does not have a rating requirement anymore, so you can just go ahead and buy it. The Furious one does, I believe, though. So the Libram of Discord from Razor Scale is something I get asked about a lot. It's like an A tier Libram on Cleave, but it's worse than Deadly. So you just still don't want to use it. You don't have to do a bunch of arena or anything to get Deadly. Pretty much anybody can get it. It's really, really cheap, and it doesn't have a requirement. And you want at least the Deadly one for the 10-second duration, because if you get the ones with the 6-second duration, well, during execute phase and stuff, that buff can actually fall off, and that can cost you some damage. So hit swaps is still a section that's under construction, but here we try to like pick out different pairs of items that are pretty similar in DPS, where one item has like hit and the other item does not have hit. So if you like need to drop hit or add hit, you can make one of these swaps. Now we already have a bunch listed here, but we're hoping to add more over the next few days. So if you guys have any ideas for good hit swaps, and you can leave them in the comments or come into the Light Club Discord and let us know, that would be awesome. But we should have some more for you guys over the next few weeks. Once again, the cape and the neck are like the best hit swaps. Those are the ones you want to make first if you possibly can. After that, rings is really good. Helm is pretty decent. Weapon is decent if you have Azir's Edge, just like one of the best ones if you have Azir's Edge. So there's a lot of good hit swaps out there, and hopefully we'll have more soon. This next section is just a little bit of a write-up on tier versus the item level and the hard modes here. It's just a little bit of a write-up about the comparison between the items that got their item levels boosted and our tier, which is still a lower item level. It basically just talks about how because of the item level boost, the off pieces ended up becoming better than our tier items, and our tier set bonus is worth about 85 to 110 DPS depending on which one, which isn't that big and is nothing compared to the extra item level on a 252 item level item. That's why we've broken down all of our sets into absolute, cleave, and single target categories, no hard modes, and 10-man BiS, and then also we have another category at the end called the low competition set category. So we're going to break this down. I'm going to go through all the different sets with you guys. So let's get started with our single target absolute best in slot set. Couple quick notes here on single target stat, prio, and gemming. Hit gems are now performing better. You can now use them instead of strength gems when you need to reach the hit cap. After the cap, you want to go back to pure strength, and hit is now going to surpass strength anytime you need that hit. So don't be afraid to use it if you need to reach the cap, and you can even use like a dragon's eye if you have to. So when you gem hit, there's a couple rules you can use to get the most out of your sockets or whatever. And our stat priority on single target is going to be hit, then strength, then expertise, then crit, which is equal to haste, then AP, which is equal to RPen. Some example stat weights I have listed here for you guys in case you need them for an add-on like Pawn or something. However, I highly recommend you guys like either calculate your own as you get gear, that sort of thing, or just don't use them in general. In my opinion, the only thing stat weights are good for is putting them into the sim so that the gear selector will tell you what some decent items are, but not using them for an absolute confidence, this item is better than this item kind of thing. But as you can see, hit rating has gotten better since phase 1, and it's only going to get better. Now, armor pen is up to 1.0. This is because we simmed using our Ulduar BiS set, which has about 150 armor penetration rating. So the 0 on the x-axis for armor penetration actually starts at 150. Just keep that in mind. It doesn't really make a big difference because, as you can see, the curve is basically not even there. I mean, it's there, but it takes so long to start getting any exponential scaling that RPen just is not a good enough stat. It's so flattened. So yes, RPen has exponential scaling, but Ret Paladin is not really able to see any of that because most of our damage is spells. So here is our single target stat graph using our Phase 2 BiS gear without Darkmoon card. And as you can see, this is how all the stats are scaling as you get more of them. And then down below we have a screenshot of that spreadsheet with links to the BiS sets. This is just a screenshot of the Phase 2 sheet that you can find in the description. Now for Horde, there's 2 sets that are good, that are about equal within 5 DPS. This is the first one here, and this is the second set here. We're just swapping the neck and the cape. And then here is the Alliance set. Alright, now for Cleave BiS, we have different stat prio and different gemming concerns for Cleave. So let's go over that. For Cleave, the stat prio shifts a little bit so that you have hit is greater than expertise, which is greater than strength, which is greater than crit, which is greater than haste, which is greater than AP, which is equal to RPen. As you can see, expertise has now passed the value of strength. Hit and expertise caps are like a lot more important while cleaving, so much so that hit and expertise gems will be a DPS gain over strength until you reach the cap. This is especially important on Kologarn because on Kologarn he can like parry your attacks because he's facing you. So that's going to be your #1 stat on that fight is expertise. You're definitely going to want at least 6.5% on that fight because up until that point it's going to apply for dodge and parry. So it's going to be twice as effective on that fight specifically up until 6.5%. So you're going to want to have a set for Kologarn where you get expertise cap without using like really bad items, without making a terrible, unreasonable DPS sacrifice. So as you can see, we're reaching the point in the expansion where you're going to want to start getting the hit and expertise cap specifically for cleave encounters. Now, the reason for this is similar to why we needed expertise in TBC. It's because for our Seal of Command to cleave, the first hit of the seal cannot dodge or parry or miss. So when you're gemming expertise, keep in mind that it's a red gem instead of a yellow gem, but you can gem it in a similar way to the way that I have listed here to gem hit. Or you can gem it in a similar way to the way that you would normally gem strength, but just with expertise instead. But remember, you only want to do this for cleave, so if you can do this with an item swap instead of regemming, that might be better as you can just swap the item on for the fight instead of having to regem or sacrificing your single target DPS. Now these stat weights here were done with the boss not facing us, so you can imagine that if I had the boss facing us, expertise would be even higher because it would be about twice as effective. At least up until that point of 6.5%. But as you can see, hit rating went all the way up to 4.58 EP. Melee hit 3.84. Strength is the same at 2.53 because strength always gives the same amount of attack power. But as you can see, expertise is almost worth 4 attack power. And hit rating is over 4. So here is the same stat graph, but for cleave using our Phase 2 cleave gear, once again without Darkmoon card. This is on a 3-target fight, 60 seconds long with no execute phase. As you can see, hit, then expertise, then strength are 3 biggest stats. Also take note to the fact that crit and haste got a lot better compared to single target. While hit and expertise scaled really wildly for cleave, crit and haste scaled as well, just a little bit more moderately. And then once again at the bottom here we have the Cleave BiS sets listed and how much DPS they do. So here's the BiS set for cleave for Horde, and here's the cleave set for Alliance. So next we have the No-Hardmodes best in slot and the 10-man best in slot sets that you can find in the sheet. I'm not going to spend too much time going over them, I'm just going to show them to you real quick. But basically the No-Hardmodes excludes any 25-man hard modes and not 10-man hard modes. The 10-man set excludes anything from 25-man raids. So here's the Horde set for no hard modes. Here's the Alliance set for no hard modes. Here's the Horde set for 10-man. And here's the Alliance set for 10-man. And now we have our final set, the low competition setup. This setup has a mix of 10 and 25-man hard mode and regular mode gear. Point is that it should be used as a guide to what gear you should aim for in a more realistic state. This keeps in mind higher competition items will probably not go to the Ret during Phase 2 just because our damage sucks. So we have two sets, one for Horde, one for Alliance. Now there's a few annotations here that I want to bring up before we show you the sets, and that's that Dark Matter, the Trinket, may be difficult to run as a lot of people are going to be after it if they can't get Comet's Trail. Dark Matter and Wrathstone are not far apart on single target, and either one's going to be fine. Wrathstone is also BiS on Cleave, and it seems like it's not that contested. Like it's decent for a lot of classes, but it's not like their top 3 choices. So you might want to go for Wrathstone over Dark Matter. Drape of the Faceless General is another high competition item, but we just don't have many good cape options. So maybe you might want to go with Fuming Anger or one of the other options that we have listed. Horde can also run Soul Devouring. Instead, you're going to run Darkstone Ring from 10-man Bezax or Bladebearer's Signet, which is like from Trash. This setup is like within 10 DPS of Colossal Rage, but Cinch is definitely higher. And if you can't get Armbeds of Bedlam, then there's not really a lot of good bracers to choose from, besides like the 252 item level ones from Algalon that are male. Those are also going to be hard to get, so you really just want to get Armbands of Bedlam. There's just no other good option here. And then our last annotation is using some sort of like 4-piece set with a single like 252 item level item is a good setup for a lot of Rets, and you're gonna have a lot easier time acquiring a setup like that than trying to go for the 0-piece full BiS. So this is just one example of a low competition set, but many different ones can be made using the different alternatives available. So here is the low competition set for Horde and the low competition set for Alliance. In the document, you can find a bunch of external links for all of our different Twitches, YouTubes, different documents, our Discords, etc. Also, a little bit at near the top of the document, you can also find all of the different donation links. I'm actually going to be adding a few more of these later today. Frostbitten is sending me his, that kind of thing. This video was kind of rushed, so sorry for a little bit of a lower production quality in this one. I basically threw this together in about 3 hours, so hopefully it's not too bad. But there's going to be another video later this week where we're going to go through the boss guide section. So stay tuned for that. Once again, a bunch of links in the description. If you want to find anything you saw in the video, it's all down there. If you want to support me, it's all down there. You can also support me by subscribing or liking or sharing my videos with any of your friends. So thanks again, guys, and I'll see you next time. My schedule hopefully is going to get better here soon. I'm hoping, but I guess we'll take it by ear. I'm hoping to have my Phase 3 video out in early March, so it's going to be earlier next time. It won't be like last minute, but who knows, life can always happen at the last minute and change your plans, and that's something I've learned in the last month, so gotta take it by ear. Cheers, guys, have a good night, and I wish you guys the best of luck in Ulduar.
This show was brought to you by Light Club, where monkeys go to church.